Hello, and welcome to Dropping the Hammer with Daniel McFadin. I'm Daniel McFadin, and with me, as always, is my co-host, James Crow. Say hi,
How's,
James.
how's it going, everybody?
And with this show coming out after the historic Bristol dirt race over the last weekend, I wanted to have someone who was at Bristol, and with us this week is a friend of mine, Jacob Seelman of speedsport.com/magazine. How are you doing, Jacob?
Not bad. I'm still finding dirt a couple days later in places that I didn't know dirt could get. Thank you, Bristol. But thank you, Bristol, because that was an absolute blast. I've done a lot of things in 8 years in the industry, and I can say with complete certainty there are a few things that I've done that rival what happened on Monday. It wasn't perfect, no, but what it was a lot of really good things that I think they have to build on. And I can say I, for one, had a ton of fun. I'm excited for 22 already to get here and try it again and see some of the things that they do to make it better. But I'm just kind of soaking it in. Other than
Yeah.
that's the first race I've been to this year.
Oh,
So
really? Okay.
yeah,
What a way to kick it off, huh?
yeah, exactly. Did the 500 and did Bristol. So regardless, I can say I've done the two biggest things all year, which I'm
And they were
fine
both
with.
rain delayed.
You didn't have to bring that part up.
So I think the con factor is you. That's it, right?
Do you really? Is it now? I know you had Matt Weaver on recently, so instead of blame Weaver, it's now blame Sealman. Is that how this works?
In 2021, it's the year of Sealman and Rain. All right. So before Monday, how much dirt racing have you covered?
A good bit. So obviously, with Sprint Car Midget underneath the bigger company brand with Speed Sport, I've done a lot of World of Outlaws sprint car stuff, a lot of All Star sprint car stuff over the last couple of years, and my family history. My granddad ran sprint cars and super modifieds back in the 70s and 80s,
Okay.
before I was born, but enough to where as I was growing up, I had a lot of appreciation for that side of the sport as well, not just the NASCAR side. So, for me, dirt racing has always been something that I've been really passionate about covering. The Chili Bowl Nationals on the midget side has been something that I've really kind of made a little bit of a home for myself with coverage over the last couple of years. I've done that event since 2018, but enough to where I definitely knew that it probably wasn't going to be 100% right year one at Bristol. I knew obviously they had done the World of Outlaws stuff 2000, 2001, and
Yeah.
I've gone back and seen some video of that. I knew it was going to be different than that, and I knew it probably wasn't going to be what all the dirt faithful expected it to be. But at the end of the day, it was probably about what I expected it to be. That dirt
Okay.
track, for the most part, slicked off like we thought it was going to. Heavy stock cars kind of do a little bit of a number on a dirt track like I expected, and it got a little dusty like I
Yes, it
expected.
did.
So,
So
you know,
okay. So when like I said last week when when the trucks went to Eldora, like I thought it would be inevitable that the Cup Series would be on dirt at some point. Um, and then they dropped that on us. They announced that last year. So what was your initial reaction when they announced the Cup was going to be on dirt at Bristol, which isn't a traditional dirt track?
so my initial reaction was kind of in two parts, to be honest with you, and definitely there are portions of said reaction that are I will not say out loud here because it's probably not necessarily family friendly. But needless to say, one, I was really excited, and two, it was something to the effect of, wait, we're going to Bristol and doing dirt? Like, dirt and the Cup Series computed because I really did, like you said, I believed that it was inevitable that eventually this would happen. But at Bristol, that to me, I was not something I expected, and I don't know that it was something much of anybody really expected. I figured we would take these guys to a purpose dirt track, somewhere like a Knoxville or a Port Royal up in Pennsylvania that's got the infrastructure, or even one of the dirt miles at Springfield and DuQuoin, like what the Arkham and Art series does. Somewhere that it would make sense more than bringing in dirt, putting it down on Bristol, and going. That to me, from day one, that kind of had the recipe for, well, I can think of about 50 ways this could go wrong. But for all intents and purposes, I thought they did better than anticipated in a lot of respects. Like I said, it wasn't perfect. There was dust. There were some issues. Mother Nature did us
Yeah.
no favors at all. But when it comes down to it, they made the best lemonade they could out of a situation that kept chucking lemons at SMI and NASCAR for 3 days. And again, something to build off of. So for me, my initial reaction was, why are we going to Bristol when there's a lot of great dirt tracks elsewhere in the country? But
and SMI owns dirt tracks.
yes,
Like there's they have the Charlotte
Charlotte.
dirt track, and then they have the Las Vegas dirt track.
Yeah, well, they've got Charlotte, they've got Vegas, they've got the half mile there in Texas
Okay, yeah.
property. There's multiple different options that I could think of. It's like, we're laying there down in Bristol, okay. But when you consider the seating, and obviously, I know they haven't said this out loud, but I honestly believe the framework for this may have been in place pre-pandemic, that this was already an idea that was being kicked down the line before everything stopped, because you consider how many people you can pack into Bristol, and they sold, I think the estimated number I saw for tickets was 36,000, I think, for Monday, roughly.
Yeah, that's what that Marcus Smith said on the Dale Jr. download, that 36,000 tickets were sold, and also that at the time of him recording the Dale Jr. download, 5,000 tickets had already been renewed. So, and they I mean, Crow, what would you? I don't know what you thought of like the crowd size, but I mean that if all 36,000 people were there, it looked like a lot of people. I mean they were spread out, but I was impressed by the number of people who stuck around to come back on a Monday, in the midst of really terrible flooding in the area. So
I really believe on that, Daniel, that it was a case of people wanted to see history. I feel like people wanted to see this race because they wanted to see what would happen. Nobody knew going into this what was going to happen, and I was just as surprised as you were. Being at the track, looking out from the press box in 3 and 4, and going, man, there really are a lot of people here. Even spread out with 140,000 or whatever it is nowadays seats at Bristol, you could still tell there was a lot of people. It was easily, I think probably the biggest crowd we've had since the pandemic started last year, and it was a really good feeling. Just the vibe. I actually had stepped down a level to the level there where the grandstands are, right underneath the press box at one point during the weekend, and you could just feel some of that ambiance, that energy back, having the crowd that we did have there. And I think it was a great thing. Like you, I was I guess pleasantly surprised, I'll say, by the amount of people that stayed on a Monday. I know sometimes that's a hard thing, but I tend to think maybe we'll get more of that going forward, because you consider it's been so tough to get people to the racetrack because of the pandemic restrictions. It almost makes me think that going forward we're going to see a better crowds and stuff like that, because it may give a lot of people in the sport and around the industry a new appreciation for what we've got once we can get it back to capacity crowds and get closer to normal here, hopefully over the next couple of months.
yeah, I think there's definitely going to be like a honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
So like, I think after a season of basically no crowds, my depth perception on what will constitute a good crowd, just going off an eye test, is completely out of whack now. So once we're like, oh, everyone can come back, I'm like, is this a good crowd? Is it? I don't remember anymore. So so Crow, give us your thoughts on the first NASCAR Cup dirt race in 51 years.
Well, on the subject of crowd size, if it hadn't been a decent crowd size, at least it would have been hidden by all the dust.
Not wrong. He is not wrong.
All right.
No, it was a really good time. Had to wait a few days. And I'm really bummed that we didn't get the heat races for the truck race. I I really like the idea of heat racing for just in general with racing, but it's sort of a staple of dirt track racing, at least what I'm used to. So I was a little bummed that we didn't get that. I would like to see that with the Cup Series, and if we do if the Xfinity race series races on dirt next year, I'd like to see it there. But no, overall it was really good. It was chaotic, and and I forget what you texted me back, Daniel. Oh yeah, when Bell and Larson crashed. It's like I believe you texted me. It's like anyone's race now.
I mean, yeah. I mean that okay. Jacob, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but the Bristol dirt race is not a dirt race intended for people who are used to dirt racing.
Yes, that is probably the most accurate description I could come up with. This is not a normal dirt race. This is not a dirt fans dirt race. This is a dirt race where I don't want to say you completely turn normal upside down and just throw it in the trash bin, but more or less you kind of turn it upside down and throw it in the trash bin. Yeah, not much of traditional dirt racing applies when you consider you're putting 3,400-pound heavy stock cars on a racetrack and turning them loose for about, in this case, what I'd consider about 50 laps longer than maybe a dirt race probably should be.
Yeah. I was gonna say that at some point. I think they could lop off 50 laps. I think a 200 lap race would work a little bit better. Do 2 75 lap stages and then a final 70 lap stage. If that's my math.
See, I would be fine with the 250, but I think they should have instead of the competition cautions, they should have just done 5 stages, 50 laps each.
Well, yeah. Then they want, for the most part, all the races to be, except for like the Coke 600, they want all the points distribution to be equal across all the races.
So maybe you still have 3 stages, but the two competition cautions, just treat them like the end of a stage, park everybody, let them do what they're going to do, go do your stuff on the track,
Okay. That could work, but as you brought up, Crow, Bell got taken out early. Larson became a non-factor. I think he was involved in 3 wrecks.
I had him in 2.
Okay, but by the end of the race, his car looks like what a car would have looked like at Bristol 20 years ago, before the damaged vehicle policy.
I felt a little nostalgic.
Yeah, I definitely did. But no one except for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finishing second. None of the dirt guys, none of the dirt ringers who are in this race really contributed to the show.
You're right. Although I will say, don't completely discount Ryan Newman. Newman had dirt experience that I don't think a lot of people thought of between his midget days and some of his USAC Silver Crown days. So I wouldn't totally count Newman out of that equation, finishing 5th. But
you're right. I mean, yeah, you're right. I thought about that over up until going to the race. He had that midget background and stuff like that. So I definitely think that contributed to what he was able to do, and he finished 5th after he spun early. He had his own incident, came back, charged up to the field, and for a while there I thought it was going to come down to Suarez and Newman. I thought that's the way things were going to settle out, but then Joey Logano comes out of nowhere. No one had Joey Logano winning this race. No one.
No. I think everybody had to either Bell or Larson winning this race because of their vast amount of experience and what they did. And when of course, it's ironic they go out in the same crash, and like Crow said to you, it's anyone's race now. And that was really the case. I didn't have Joey Logano coming up through there and being a contender, although I give him credit. He spent a lot of time running a dirt modified between February to now to get enough knowledge to be dangerous in that race. I definitely didn't have Daniel Suarez coming and being in this mix, but I think to me that shows the infrastructure that Trackhouse has put together in Dustin Martin in such a short time to turn that team into a contender. And I don't think I don't think that's going to be the end of what we see out of that 99. But you're right. The other dirt ringers, I thought Stuart Friesen would be able to do a whole lot more with the Spire opportunity than what he did, and he was pretty much a non-factor. I think ended up a lap down in like 23rd, 24th place at the end of it. Chris Windham, I don't think we'll ever really know what he might have been able to do.
Mm-hmm.
The engine goes south on him pretty early. Shane Golovic was involved in that very first crash that took out Anthony Alfredo and Eric Almirola, and what a nasty hit for Almirola too. I don't know that I've seen a hit like that at Bristol, even on the concrete, in several years.
Well, actually, I thought watching most of the race that the accidents looked to me like accidents you would have seen on pavement.
I know.
That to me is like, also like this is really just playing out how a normal race would have. Just everyone's sideways more.
I think the lessened speed was offset by the lack of braking ability.
Yeah, I'll buy that from Crow. He's got a good point there.
So at one point, okay, when we got to the dust cloud over Bristol, and we're going to a single file restart for the first time since, I don't know, like
2005, I think it was, or 2000.
Before 2010, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. Like I wasn't sure why they were doing it, but then like people explained, especially like Stenhouse and his post race availability, like that's something that you do on dirt when the track conditions aren't great, is that you go to single file restarts. It's like, okay, fine, all right.
Yeah. So and I can explain actually a little further on what Stenhouse said. So the reason for that is basically twofold. Either one, where you have visibility issues for a double file restart, which is some of what we saw, and the other time it really comes into play is if you have a track conditions where one lane has taken rubber and it's really dominant compared to whether that's the inside lane taking rubber and being really fast, or the outside lane taking rubber and being really fast. If you've got one dominant lane, more often than not, they'll go to single file restarts so as to not disadvantage whichever is the non-dominant lane on a double file restart.
Okay.
I think we did have some of that in Sunday's race, particularly the last about 75 laps. I think the bottom lane, right against that inside berm, really started to take some rubber. Instead of just being that black, shiny, slicked off, that shine started to go away. The rubber started to lay down more. And that bottom lane, it was just, you saw it with Denny Hamlin the last couple of restarts. It was just so long, and there was so little grip around that outside lane. You just couldn't make up the speed that inside lane had with the rubber. So I do think that also played into it somewhat. And Stenhouse said he was one of the ones over the radio that was pushing for them to go to single file, as they ultimately did.
Okay. So around that time, you sent out a tweet into the universe saying we were now in 2008 Indy Brickyard 400 territory, and I like, no, this is not even close. Why did you tweet that? Why did you think we were in that territory?
So there was part. If I could have that one back, I would change. I would adjust the wording to soften it a little bit.
Okay.
But it's one of those where I was so taken aback by the fact that we were actually going into the changing. I'm used to it in dirt track racing, having to change things on the fly sometimes. But NASCAR through the years has proven to be so structured, so almost set in their ways, if you will, that I was completely taken aback when they actually decided to do what I really believed they should have done, and gone to the single file restarts. Obviously, we were having that was right after the point where I think we'd had either 2 or 3 back-to-back cautions as well for incidents that were some visibility issues, where at the moment that I sent that tweet out, I really did not envision the race getting any better. I felt at that point that it was only going to go downhill from there. And this is one of those times where I've never been so glad to send a tweet out into the universe and be wrong, or at least partially wrong, because they did the best job that they could during that last break of adding water, more water than they had all day to the racetrack to somewhat mitigate it didn't totally mitigate the dust, but it somewhat mitigated the dust, made at least the both lanes a little closer to even for a little bit, and I think set us up with some decent racing that I wasn't genuinely sure that we were going to get during that final stage. I honestly, at the point I sent that tweet out, I honestly believed the track had kind of gotten to the point of no return where there was no amount of water or track prep that was going to save it from being a complete mess during the last stage, because I've seen this play out with longer distance dirt races before where the track just gets to a point where it's either single file single groove or it's single file single groove, and people get so impatient that they just start running people over to try and make positions, and at that point then it's a bit of a disaster, even if that is kind of what old Bristol was for so many years. So I will say, I'm not afraid to stand up and say when I'm wrong, and I don't feel like I was totally wrong on that, but I was wrong enough that that last 50 laps was genuinely better than what I was prepared, in my mind for it to be.
So yeah, just for reference for everyone who's listening, the 2008 Brickyard 400 was just a complete disaster of a race because they had to throw a caution, like what was it, every 10 laps or something
10,
like?
Yeah,
they had to throw a caution every 10 laps.
The tires just would not hold up.
Yeah, they had brought a bad tire. They apparently there wasn't good enough testing, and so yeah, they were throwing cautions every 10 laps, and that was the race that kind of sent the Brickyard into a death spiral. Yeah, so thankfully it didn't turn into that kind of
right.
scenario. But
well, I do want to add to that if I can for a second, because with the way the track had started to rubber up at that point, Daniel, I was also a little bit concerned that we were going to get to the point where we were going to start blowing out right rears, because when rubber adheres itself to dirt, like we saw in the second half of that race, and you see the track get really black, it also makes the track even more abrasive than what just the normal dirt surface would be when it's slicked off. And we saw some of the tire wear issues going back to practice on Friday. That was the whole reason they changed up the format into 550 lap segments in the first place. So I just I probably should have waited on that tweet, to be honest, but and I'll say that straight up, but I had visions of the last part of that race going really bad really quick, and the potential for some tire failures. And like I said, I've never been so glad to be wrong about a tweet, because I think we ended up with just about the most competitive ending we probably could have.
Oh no, in that last stretch we had that battle between Hamlin and Logano that really looked like a battle you would get at Bristol on pavement, side by side, arching the corners, diving down in, trying to get by him, and it was exciting to watch. And those were two guys I was not expecting to be in that position. So
I wasn't expecting either of them to be in that position either. And I think what made it better, not just that it was at Bristol, but it was two guys battling at Bristol that have history together.
Yeah.
We know that those two have kind of had their wars in the past.
Last year in this race, and I find it hilarious. Afterwards, someone asked Hamlin, "Why didn't you put the bumper to Logano?" And he's like, "I don't race like that." And I'm like, Martinsville, 2017, would like to have a word with you, or whatever year that was, that he spun Chase Elliott with 2 to go. It's I don't. Yep. Is this the same Denny Hamlin? What's going on here? So, but I mean, I was really surprised that he said over his radio coming up to the final restart that I'm something to the effect of tell his spotter I'm coming, and then he just arched it off into the corner instead and then didn't do anything. It's come on. But no, it was overall, I thoroughly enjoyed that race on Monday. It was incredible to watch, surreal to watch. Friday's practice sessions were, I've never been excited to watch a practice session before, but there we were for 4 different practice sessions, two in Cup and 2 in Truck, and it was just fun to watch. Because I mean that was our first non-speedway practice session of any sort since March of last year. So at Phoenix. So and we're not going to get it again until
Coda in May, I think, right?
Coda, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that practice session too. So I so during the final stage break, they announced that they're they're doing this again next year. And then Steve O'Donnell, who's the chief racing development officer for NASCAR, said that we intend to do this in 2002 and beyond. So I say they got what, at least 2 years left in them for this at least.
You know what, I would say I see this for sure going through at least 2023, and if they continue to learn and continue to make it better over the next couple of years, I can envision this becoming an annual event. I truly can, because I think the excitement factor is there, the unpredictability factor is there, and once you hit on this, once you get it right,
Yeah.
it's going to be really good. It's going to open it up to that mix between guys you expect to be up there with the dirt experience, guys you don't expect to be up there that don't have dirt experience. I think this race has the potential to become a crown jewel of the Cup Series, providing they keep it on the schedule and continue to build it, for years to come. I really feel that strongly about the diamond in the rough, I think, that they've hit on with this concept. And I hope I want to add to that I hope they don't duplicate that. I don't want to see 2, 3, 4 dirt races on the schedule necessarily, but I think if you do one, you make it an event and you make it special. That to me is what this is about.
Well, I want them to do what I want them to do with the championship race. I want them to move the championship race around. I think give Bristol 3 years and then see what dirt on Martinsville looks like. That would be.
Oh wow, I'm not sure Martin. I mean, I know we've got some flat dirt tracks. I don't know that I think Martinsville's almost too flat to be able to pull that off.
Really?
So, part of the thing with dirt tracks that makes it work is you've got to have enough banking to be able to hold the cars, more or less, because you're not going as fast necessarily as you would be at say a New Hampshire or a Phoenix when you're running on the pavement, because the speeds come down somewhat. The lack of it kind of exacerbates the lack of banking. So I almost think of Martinsville, if you try dirt, you're already only averaging 80, 90 miles an hour at Martinsville. You back that down to 65 or 70, and I would wonder if it would still be enough to be feasible there. It being that flat. But I think Richmond would be interesting. Richmond's got enough banking. I think that could be interesting.
That'd be a lot of dirt, because they have that fantasy track on NASCAR Heat, where it's Richmond covered in dirt, and it was always really hard for me. So, but I want to see them share it, and I know Speedway Motorsports probably doesn't want to share it. So, but I would like to see it, just every 3 years or so, go to a new place. But
I would like to see one more dirt race in the playoffs.
Okay, Crow, you're asking a lot there. I don't know. I love where it's at early in the season as a wild card to give somebody a shot. I don't know that I would want to see that help, determine who moves on for a championship being around.
I mean, I am thinking a few years from now, not immediately, but I don't know. I like the idea of, like, at some point in the playoffs, you just have a series of the different track types.
Well, I mean, like right now, the playoffs are very representative of the tracks that they go to throughout the year, except for a dirt track. I mean, you got the Roval in there, you got the Super Speedway, you got Bristol, you got some flat tracks like Phoenix was the championship race, you got Martinsville, Darlington, you got 2 1.5 mile tracks in the round of 8, which I don't like.
Yeah. So I would like to see. I would love to see Kansas at some point come back to the round of 12 like it was several years ago. Kind of spread those out between Kansas and Texas a little bit. I wasn't necessarily a proponent of those two tracks being in the same round when it first happened.
So yeah, but like I believe the playoffs should be representative of the season. So, but I don't know what you do with a dirt race. Whether maybe one year you just make the Bristol night race the dirt race, just swap them for 1 year or something like that. Which I mean, well, if they've learned their lessons from this year, next year's dirt race will probably be at night.
Be at night, yes.
So, uh, which I mean, 3 million people tuned in for the race Monday, which really surprised me.
That was impressive to me. And I'm trying to remember the exact stat. I saw it somewhere. It was like the second highest rated Monday race since what, like 2014 or 16. So
I don't know.
It was like at least 5 or 6 years. It was the second highest rated Monday Cup Series event, which to me I thought was really representative.
Well, I just like I was ticked off that they were airing the race at 3 for an event that Fox asked for. We want this dirt race. So, but sorry, it's Monday. We have to show America's Most Wanted in an episode of 911. Those take precedence over this sporting event that we specifically asked for.
They also changed the Truck Series race time at the last minute too.
Yeah, but positive thing for the trucks. I think more people got to watch the truck race in person than would have probably been the case had the race gone off without a hitch on Saturday.
For sure. I just know a few people missed the Truck Series race that were looking forward to it because of that.
Yeah, that noon start time that sucked. Like they go from being pushed back to what 8 p.m. Sunday, and then
9 o'clock Sunday night to noon on Monday.
Yeah, so but at least they got to keep the thing of the Cup drivers who were in the truck race getting to do that truck race to get that experience rather than doing the Cup race and then going to the truck race. Right. So at least that was intact.
Yes, which that ended up working out well. I think that was a good call. Martin Truex winning that race was not what I expected either.
No.
But then it's the KBM 51, and why should you ever bet against the KBM 51, right?
But not like that was like his first official dirt race ever. Like he said he'd done like charity races and stuff, but that was like his first actual legitimate dirt race. It's like, and he took the lead on the last lap of the first stage, and it was his.
Was pretty much it, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I really do like is that Truex doing these one-off Xfinity race in Atlanta and almost just cleaning everyone's clock before he got a speeding penalty. Doing that and then doing this truck race and just cleaning everyone's clock. I think really showcased how good of a driver Martin Truex Jr. is. That I think Mike gets overlooked. I mean, so a lot of his wins have come, in the last four years. And but I think this really showed that he's a very adaptable driver at this point in his career.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. His Cup crew chief James Small said that Martin told him earlier in the week he felt like he missed his calling as a dirt track driver. But no, I do think that he's overlooked sometimes as one of the better drivers of the generation. I mean, he's got the championship. He came on late, but has come on very strong, and I sense a different confidence about him this year compared to last year. I think they've finally figured out this no practice thing and how it works for him and what they need to do to be able to give him some good race cars, and I think you'll see more of this out of that 19 team going forward. I know they weren't necessarily a big threat last year. I think that changes as we get into the summer.
Okay. All right, I think that closes the book for now on Bristol Dirt, unless either one of you guys has some lasting impressions from the race.
No, I'm just happy that we had it, and I'm happy that we're going to have it again.
So, yes, here. Okay. All right, Martinsville time. So some news got dropped on us today, Crow, that tomorrow. It's tomorrow, right, Jacob?
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow, NASCAR is holding a special test at Martinsville with Kyle Larson and Chris Buescher, where they're going to test out some special rain tires to see if it's feasible to come back quicker from a rain delay and run on a damp track. So I think they were inspired in part by how the rain tires performed on the Roval last year. So yeah, this is I'm gonna say it kind of weird, Jacob. We're gonna try damp tires on the damp track, and I believe they tried this once back in the 90s with Terry Labonte.
I was gonna say, you're a history nerd. You should know this is not entirely new. September 1995.
Okay.
They had practice rained out.
Yeah.
On the Friday of race weekend, and Goodyear went to Terry Labonte and was like, "You want to try something?" And Terry went out and ran a handful of laps on what was at the time the Goodyear treaded wet weather compound, and I think he said later it was like driving on ice. Like, he's like, the tires worked well, but I wouldn't want to go any faster than what I did. So it's an interesting concept. I'm interested to see how it will work. You're right. We can't do this in a downpour in a monsoon, but if it's a damp track and it can help evacuate the rest of the water to get dry grooves and get the track back to where you can end up being on slicks quicker, I do think there is a positive out of that. Now, I don't think that you can take this to every oval because the banking at speed will just chew up the softer rubber on those rain tires. But at tracks where you're not running huge speeds, a Martinsville, Loudon, I think is flat enough that you could probably get away with it in the right circumstances.
They mentioned Phoenix too, and that's what one of the quotes was, Phoenix, which it doesn't really rain in Phoenix that often. But
it rained last fall at Phoenix?
Last fall?
No, sorry. The race weekend earlier this year. My fault.
Did it?
I think it delayed the ARCA race a little bit.
Oh, okay. I think I remember that. Okay. Rain is how Dale Jr. got his last Cup win at Phoenix. So
every once in a while, it does rain in the desert.
So, but yeah, I think it's interesting. I'd like to watch it. And I know every time it feels like they bring out the wet tires on the road course. Someone asks on Twitter, ask Bob Pockris or someone, why can't we do rain tires on an oval? Well, first off, physics. It's very it would not end well. So
well, we're gonna find out if it's gonna end well or not.
So
about less than 24 hours.
So I mean, usually when they're asking that question, they're talking about a big oval or something like that. So yeah, like I said, I'd like to see it. If they institute that this year, that's very nimble of NASCAR and Goodyear to do something like that. Which, I mean,
it almost makes you wonder if this has been something that's been in the works through the off season, because I don't think it's something they could just pull out of their hats and be ready to go within a week. I feel like this has probably been going on a little bit longer, and we're just now hearing about it.
So, but yeah, it should be interesting to get results from that. All right, Martinsville itself. We're on a bye week this weekend, so we'll be going to Martinsville next weekend. So the defending winner at Martinsville is, of course, Chase Elliott. But the defending winner of this race, when it was held on a Wednesday last year, was Martin Truex Jr. And he's kind of my early pick to go back to back in this race. What are your thoughts on the season going into Martinsville so far?
My thoughts on the season are, I think we're going to get to 8 for 8 by the time we're done because of the three guys that I think you need to watch in that race. None of them have gone to victory lane yet, so which is shocking when I toss the names out here in a minute. That none of the three guys that we're getting ready to talk about have won yet this season. But that's just how bizarre 2021 has been. I feel like this is going to be a race that rewards the guys that traditionally run well at Martinsville. We always talked about this track being a veterans racetrack, a track where experience matters, and I think that will happen again, regardless of the fact that it's going to be a night race. Three guys. Oh, by the way, shameless plug to the modified race Thursday night, because you want to talk about what the best race of the weekend is going to be. That race will be the best race of the weekend. Why? Because modifieds and Martinsville. Need I say any more? Good old short track racing. It's been way too long since modifieds have been there. I just wanted to make sure we get that in, because I'm going to be up there for that one on next Thursday night, and I'm really excited about it. Cup race though, three guys to watch. 19 as the defending winner, 11 because he's Denny Hamlin and he has like 5 grandfather clocks, and Chase Elliott because not only is he the most recent winner at Martinsville from last fall, but Hendrick Motorsports has been really, 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 really good there for a really long time. And he's got the extra weapon of Chad Knaus no longer being a crew chief, but being vice president of competition at Hendrick Motorsports. Chad's kind of good and has a few of those grandfather clocks too. So, I think you're going to see a very much renewed Hendrick Motorsports effort at Martinsville, and we're going to see that team somewhat dominate over the course of the day. I think you'll see all 4 cars run really well there, but I just have a funny feeling that we've been waiting for the 9 to be a cut above the rest, and I think this is the race where the 9 is a cut above the rest. And if you wanted to go ahead and threaten me and say pick somebody, that's who I'm going with. I say Chase Elliott wins next Saturday night.
Okay. Well, Jacob, you mentioned going 8 for 8. That's a reference to that we've gone 7 races with 7 different winners so far this year, which is the first time since 2014, which is just really incredible. And like you said, Chase Elliott, defending champion, hasn't won. Denny Hamlin, who leads the points, hasn't won. Which that's I don't know how far back you'd have to go to find. Yeah, the guy who's led for 6 of the 7 weeks hasn't won a race. When was the last time that happened? Also with 2014, the 7th different winner, which was a Texas race, which was rain delayed to Monday.
Monday was Joey Logano.
Joey Logano. So history doesn't repeat; it rhymes. So I like that nugget. Is it so? What are your Crow? What are your thoughts about going to Martinsville?
Honestly, I'm kind of clueless on this one. Like, I was just thinking, it's like, if you ask me who to pick, I'll say, well, you said Martin Truex. His first name is Martin. It's Martinsville. There we go.
I like his logic.
I don't think anyone made that joke when he won last year, did they? Jacob, did anyone say Martin wins at Martinsville?
Somebody did. It wasn't me. I thought about it, but I didn't want to be that guy, and then somebody else ended up doing it, but I can't remember who it was.
Okay. Well, so you said you bring up Hendrick being really good. I think this is going to be an interesting opportunity to see what Kyle Larson can do at Martinsville, because it's not really historically been one of his best tracks.
It's not historically been a track that's been overly good for Chip Ganassi racing either. So I just don't know that Kyle's ever been in a position where he's had the best stuff to go out and try and do something at Martinsville, and he's going to have an opportunity to do that next weekend. And I think it'll be a good gauge on what his potential, I think, for the year and going into the summer will be. If he can go out and perform well at a track that he hasn't historically been his best at, good grief, the sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be Martinsville, but I just have that gut feeling like he's got another win coming up soon. Like, I think he's probably going to be the first 2-time winner of the season.
What's after Martinsville, Jacob? Do you know off the top of your?
Martinsville is Richmond.
Okay, yeah, all right. So yeah, we got 2 short tracks coming up. So
Yes,
okay,
and then we go. I think we go Martinsville, then Richmond, and then Talladega, if I remember right, and then some combination of Dover and Kansas before we go Dakota.
okay. So yeah, Larson has a one at Richmond. It was actually the first track he won at that wasn't a 2 mile track in Cup.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so he's got that going for him. If you remember it correctly, Jacob, last year the Martinsville race, that was the most glaring example in a non-practice world where teams just straight up missed it, and the guys who were at the front just dropped like rocks. Specifically, Jenny Hamlin was one. They were out to lunch. It was fascinating to watch. I I think we're deep into the post practice world that probably won't happen this time. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it'll happen this time. I think we've gotten to a point where these guys know now what they need to roll off the trailer with to not have that problem, or at least have that problem far less. And I think we'll see a lot more of the guys that you expect to be towards the front a lot sooner in this return visit to Martinsville. I don't think we saw what we saw in the race, in the midweek race last summer. I don't feel like we really saw that in the fall race either. So I think these guys have pretty well gotten to the point where they've mastered what they need to roll off the truck with to be solid in that first stage, and just continually get better on it.
So okay, so my pick's Martin Truex. Your pick is Chase Elliott, and Crow, you're going with Truex too because his first name's Martin.
Yes.
Okay, let's want to make sure that's all on the record. So, all right, man. So I think it's an off week, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. Jacob, thank you for joining us for this special episode to recap of the one of the biggest days NASCAR's had in many years. So any closing thoughts on Martinsville, and where can people find you online and on social media?
Ooh, closing thoughts about Martinsville. I can't tell you who it's going to be, but I think somebody's going to jump up and surprise us with a really good day at Martinsville. Like I said, I don't have a good idea as to who that might be yet, but look for surprises. It's a short track. It's easier for those things to happen, kind of like a super speedway event. And then for me, as far as the day-to-day work, either speedsport.com or sprintcarandmidget.com for my dirt coverage and grassroots coverage on that side of things. And I do not lurk on Facebook like most of the general populace, but I do lurk plenty on Twitter, and anybody that wants to follow me on there can do so at Jacob Seelman 77.